Welcome back. This is our web exclusive with Pancho, Mr. Andre DeCaris from the Cannabis Movement of Saint Lucia. So earlier we were talking about farming and people getting to the business of being able to do different products with cannabis, with the plant. So my question is, since we're creating a cooperative similar to how
like the SLBGA,
okay,
that
right,
sort of thing,
that sort
where
of thing.
all commercial activity had to go through the SLBGA. Something similar to that. We're using that kind of basic model.
Right. So anybody would just come to the association and apply to be able to grow, and then they need to fill out they need to meet a certain criteria, I would assume.
Yes, they would need to meet a certain criteria.
Okay, and what are some of the things you think that people need to think ahead of if they're trying to get into the industry?
Well, what has happened, what we've seen happen in Colorado, in Jamaica, we looked at the bill that's being proposed in Antigua, the bills in Antigua and St. Vincent, Uruguay, and the rhetoric coming out of the bigger countries is taking the drugs out of the hands of criminals. Well, that wouldn't fly here, because the Rastaman is a criminal, I'm a criminal. So you're going to take it out of the Rastaman's hand and the ghetto youth's hands, and whose hands are you going to put it into? So that wouldn't fly. What we are saying is, let's turn our criminals into legitimate business people. So the people who are involved in ganja now, they have a lot of people who send their kids to school, buy school books. Their families that depend on ganja commerce to live. You cannot take the bread out of those people's mouths. But what you want to do now is to make those people legitimate business people so they could continue with their practice. But what we want to do is bring in better business practices, HACCP, so that they sell it a certain way. Right now, you buy a 5-bag in foil. You don't know the quality herb you're getting.
Right.
You don't know if they put crack in it.
And we've heard of those black joints and all of those sort of things, right?
So the whole way that we're going to sell it, all the rules and regulations to change it to make it safe, because right now it's not safe. It's illegal, but it's not safe.
It gets into the hands of anybody.
Exactly. And then to get into the schools, to get to speak to people, to get to the churches, to get to all the stakeholders. So before we actually fully legalize, we have to make sure that everybody is on board and everybody knows the rules. So, it's like bananas. We still buy bananas in the supermarket. Bananas are legal, but not everybody grows bananas.
Yes.
So we will need recreational, or what we are saying is recreation is a kind of a word that we want to stop using.
Okay.
And we want to say personal. And then we also want to stop using legalization and start using an improved regulatory framework.
Okay.
Because the word legalization brings up images of just a total free-for-all, which it absolutely is not.
That's not what you're proposing.
No,
okay, because that's where my mind was.
With legalization, like I said in the show, comes rules, regulations, controls, while decriminalization has no controls. It's just whatever you have on you is good.
Yes.
The police can't lock you up.
Now, in some places, so I lived in the U.S. for a little bit, and right when I was there, the District of Columbia, D.C., as most may know it, allowed, so to speak, or permitted persons to grow a certain number of plants in their household. So you're not allowed to carry it in public. You're not allowed to smoke it in public. But you're allowed to grow, let's say, a total of 4 flowering plants at a time per adult in your household. Do you think that is the direction that we want to go here? Because if we do create a free-for-all, and people can just be walking around the streets with this drug, so...
Well,
and anybody can really farm as many plants as they want.
No public consumption. What we will do in the regulations is actually establish smoking areas and rules governing smoking. So you might see people smoking, but they will be smoking in one area as opposed to just be smoking down the road. We are proposing a certain amount of plants. We are proposing an age limit. There are many regulations that we're proposing to the government as to how the government is going to deal with those proposals.
Right.
We don't know.
Okay, so my concern is I don't think we should allow every Tom, Dick, Harry, the sister, Nenen, and the dog to plant the opportunity to be able to plant freely. Because I would not even, I mean, the process can be developed similarly to bananas, but I would not categorize it as, free for all, everybody can plant just like bananas, because there are not negative effects of using bananas, I'm assuming, unless you're allergic to it. But to prevent the possibility of abuse, don't you think that certain persons should be provided a license to grow?
Yes,
Unless it's in your household where you have 2, 3, 4 flowering plants, because anybody can just produce on a mass scale and sell it, and it goes into the wrong hands.
No, they can't, because if you're selling, for instance, the people want thousands of pounds of ganja. So you can grow a whole acre, and an acre will yield up to between 350 to 400 pounds, depending. So where you're going to sell 400 pounds, you can only sell it to the cooperative that will now sell it to factories.
But there's the opportunity for the black market, for the guys to go under the underground, as they have been for several years now.
Well, many of these people that you say are underground people are the dealers, the fellas who juggle in 5 bags on the corner.
Yes.
Yeah, well, now it's their opportunity to get clean stuff that is organically grown, and they will continue, because there's a misconception that when it becomes legal, people who never smoked before are going to all of a sudden start smoking.
You don't think that's the case?
No, I don't. And actually, when you look at all the models, Portugal legalized all drugs in 2001. They have 17 years of data, and that didn't happen. Actually, teenage youth went down, many crime went down. A lot of things that they thought would go bad didn't go bad. Is Jamaica sinking? Is Colorado sinking? Are there mad people everywhere? Are there drunk driving, or at least weed driving deaths? Has car accidents gone up? So all the fears that people had, we have models to show that it just doesn't happen. That's our paranoia, thinking that, well, oh boy, if we legalize, this is going to happen, and it just hasn't happened anyway.
Right. So what are the provisions that are in place for persons of the Rastafarian community in terms of how often they can grow? When I say how often they can grow, like how much can they grow?
Well, what we are suggesting is that the Rastafarians they don't have to abide by the regulations. So for the Rasta man, it's like a tomato or any other plant, because that's their culture. They use it as a sacrament.
So they can grow as many plants as they like because it's part of their religion.
Correct.
So how do you determine then? Because I can just come up today and say, I'm a Rasta. You understand?
That is a question that has been asked, and the Ayanola Council, the Bobo Shanti, and the 12 tribes, they need to, at least go on a membership drive. Okay. So you have to prove that you're part of a Rastafarian organization.
For very long.
So that's a suggestion that we throwing around.
Yeah, because it's something that burned in the back of my mind. Anybody at any point can say, I mean, if you're caught, say I'm Rastafarian, so I'm practicing this for religious purposes, which is why it brings me back to the whole idea of regulating so that this does not fall into the hands of the persons that it should not be in the first place.
But it's illegal now, and it's in the hands of the persons who it shouldn't be in the first place. So with legalization and regulations, you avoid that scenario.
And the penalties at that point can be a little more severe because...
Well, we no severe penalties, no draconian penalties.
It is, well, when you talk about draconian, if it is, like I said, I would not put it on the same category as bananas because there are no harmful effects of bananas.
But would you put it on the same category as rum?
I would not put it on the same category as rum because there are no benefits of using alcohol, in my opinion.
So then,
and which is why I believe that whilst there are good and positive benefits of using the plant, there are also questions of abuse and other negative setbacks towards consumption, which is why I am seeing more clearly the need for regulation as opposed to free-for-all.
Well, with regulations, we need education. It's educate and regulate. Protect the vulnerable while reaping the economic benefits. So that is why
and that's how we protect the vulnerable. If we regulate, then
Exactly.
we're not allowing those children to randomly. Because, and you spoke a little earlier about the statistics show that persons who never consumed before will not necessarily consume now. But I can already imagine the young persons who knew that there was so much stigma attached to it now would just, because you know those same young persons, they have no craving for cigarette smoking, but because their friends are doing it, they're on the side of the road and they're smoking. So that is something that can easily influence them thinking it's even more acceptable because now weed is legal.
Well, the thing is, even though as it's illegal, all the young people have access to it. We live in this country. I mean, I'm not making any, pronouncement that nobody knows. You could go anywhere and just buy weed on the corner on the street. Nobody is enforcing it. So the kids get weed. I mean, I started smoking at 14 in a draconian place like Trinidad. And you can get it. It's illegal. And you get put in jail in Trinidad for a few seeds. For cigarette papers, we sell cigarette papers, wrappers at your wrapper
Everywhere.
joint, or everywhere.
Everywhere.
If you in Trinidad and they see you with a cigarette paper, they'll take you down. So even though it's really stringent laws and stuff, people will get it anyway. So the way to actually tackle the fears that you have is only through education. And then you cannot make everybody adhere to it. People will have their own choice, and they will use it if they want to. So it's education,
To be able to understand
education.
how you use this and how often you need to
Actually,
use it.
I was asked to speak to students in a school in Soufrière because many of the young men were burning. And I went in and explained to them the situation. And the teacher actually told me a few months later that it had such a great impact on them. So, because I know when I started burning ganja, what happened to me in school. And my grades went down and I just wasn't focused on my education. And speaking to the kids and telling them, listen, you're all coming to school, your parents, want you to do well. Leave the ganja for after school.
Right.
And
Okay.
I explained to them what happened
And these
to me.
are students who are like over, like adult consenting ages? No.
No, some of them are 15, 16,
Okay.
17. So, but it's many people, it's available. So kids are using herb. So it's about education. So going into the schools and educating that particular group of students had a positive influence on them.
Okay.
And the last thing I would like to say about the schools and the use of the herb is that in one of our, we did an open campus at Saint Lucia, and 3 school principals came in there because they have real problems in their schools, secondary schools.
Okay.
And one of the great things that we found out, they said, Rasta children and the children of Rasta parents are not the problem. It's the people who are not Rasta children and kids who come from non-Rasta families are the problem. Because the Rasta children see it every day, mom and dad burning. Look, the ganja there, they could smoke it if they want it. So when they leave home...
So they're educated, they know.
Exactly.
That is
So
the
this is
problem.
this is another indication that education works. Because a lot of the parents who have no idea about the herb, the kids are lying to their parents, going with their partners, getting herb, smoking the herb, and when the parents say, you smoke weed? No, mom. No. My eyes are
Because they
red.
know what the consequences will be.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
Yes.
then you have kids lying to your parents. And then that's when that's a divide, that's a separation.
But we are looking at an age limit for consumption.
Yes, definitely.
So, yes. And that's 18?
18, 21, 25 are the numbers being put out there.
Okay.
So we don't want to be presumptuous and decide as the cannabis movement, we want to go to town halls and we stakeholders so that it's a a national consensus that, okay, everybody happy with these rules? Okay, everybody happy? Some may not be that happy, but the general population, the majority of the population are happy with the regulations. Okay, these are the regulations.
Perfect.
And then you educate the people about the regulations, and then you implement legalization.
Now, you mentioned you went to the school. So what are some other educational entities that you're currently working with in terms of creating more awareness and getting the message out there?
Well, many of the organizations, the National Youth Council is one of them. They're community groups. We've been asked in 3 communities have asked us to come and do town halls. So people are realizing that, hey, look, this thing is going to happen. How is it going to affect our community? Is it going to create jobs? Is it going to create delinquency? We want to know. So they're inviting us.
Okay.
So the people want to know, which is great. And because we thought we would have to go and ask them, but we realized
they're now coming to you because they want to know. It is the conversation. The world is making the change, and we need to make the change too. So in terms of your educational awareness plan, how long do you think this could run? Do you think it can be accomplished throughout the entire year of 2019?
Well, obviously we look at Canada and no, not the entire year. If the government moves fast and makes a decision, we believe that 6 months of saturation, like what's happening here, this is also education.
Conversation happening
your viewers are listening to this and learning. Some of them may think that I'm just talking crap.
Okay.
But they could then.
This is the reality. We have to talk about it.
They could go and back check everything that I said. There's enough research to prove that.
So you're saying 6 months fast track education.
Education.
What is the government's plan in terms of how long or how many years they see us getting to the point of decriminalization?
Well, decriminalization, let's hope before Christmas.
Okay.
And legalization.
That's very ambitious of us. In November, we have only next week, a week and a half to go.
Well, you see, Gaston Brown did it.
Okay.
He just came out and made a pronouncement and said, hey, police, if people have weed in their pocket, leave them alone.
So we can start off there. This is not going to take too much for us to get to that
nothing
point.
To that point.
All right.
But when you tell the police that, also tell the community, listen, there'll be no public consumption, and this is the amount you could carry, and set a few ground rules for the decriminalization stage while we're doing all the going through the misuse of act and coming up with our new Ganja Act and all of those things. That would take months. And the National Educational Program, all those things are going to take a lot of time.
Okay.
And then at the end of that, then
So how many years are we looking at? So we're looking at Christmas for decriminalization, 6 months for education. So this July next year.
Yeah, July. We should look at July,
because
August.
I would assume that the government would have requested a little more time. How much time are they thinking it will take?
Well,
what year are they looking at?
We have foreign investors knocking on our door. They have some here already and who have come here already. So if the government wants to make money, you have to legalize fast because these guys are going to need licenses to grow.
So we're saying 2019 is the cutoff point.
I would say so. And not only that, because Canada has legalized, if we're doing business with Canada, that's illegal in our law. So we have no choice but to legalize.
But to get to that
Otherwise,
place.
it's going to, because Air Canada comes here, and all our intermediate banks, Bank of Montreal, CIBC, Royal Bank,
well, that's a conversation
Scotiabank.
I think we need to come back and talk about, because I understood that we've been talking about if we legalize in Canada and that money is filtered through our banking system, then it's, money laundering to an extent. But we have so many crimes where we get paid for, prostitution, for example, and people bank their monies in the bank. So in my mind, once the money is in there and it comes from a legitimate legal source, it's already in the system. But I wish we had so much more time. I need our viewers to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Follow us at ETV Uncut. Mr. Pancho, and you tell me don't call you Mr. Pancho, call you Pancho. Thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure to have you, and I hope to catch you again. And before you get too famous, let me take a selfie. All right. Okay. See our viewers get this going on Facebook. Thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
on the show.
Yeah,
All right.
great help.
Okay. Have a great day.